This week on Dance of Joy, we talk about hammer toes, French revolutionaries, and anachronistic coffee cups. All that and more as we watch Season 8, Episode 4 of our favorite 80s hit sitcom, Perfect Strangers. Hello and welcome to Dance of Joy, a Perfect Strangers rewatch podcast. My name is Imran. I'm one of your cousin hosts. Joining me every week, my sister Sophia. Hello.
Hello, for just a few more weeks joining you.
We're getting there as we are in the final stages of this whole journey.
So exciting, but you know what else is exciting? I just found out a couple of days ago that a good friend of mine from school and high school, like a person I went to school with in second grade, she still lives here in Chicago, and she lives in the Lincoln Park neighborhood on the block of where Cousin Larry's apartment, the old apartment, was
the
filmed.
Exterior
the
shot.
Establishing shot. And she posted these pictures. I'm like, that is amazing. Also, incidentally, the same block had the house where I don't know if you've heard of this, Chicago people have heard of this, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre.
That's on the same block as Perfect Strangers apartment.
Al Capone killed a bunch of people.
Yeah, no, it was a garage, I believe. And I know about that area. It's an empty lot now.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
but this is the block. No, it might not be, because I think my friend lives on that block.
No, where the massacre happened, I think there's nothing there. It's just an empty lot. But I did not know it was right on the same block.
On the same block as our apartment. Remember
Pioli's old apartment? Yes.
Pioli's Pizza and the store?
I missed that apartment.
Twinkassetti's store?
Yeah. That's crazy. Who knew?
Who knew? So anyway, I have a personal connection to the block where our favorite show was, the exterior shot, at least, where we believe our cousins were living.
That's crazy. Do you have a personal connection to game shows about babies? Because that's what we're going to be talking about. We are in, like we just said, Season 8, Episode 4 of Perfect Strangers.
4 of 6.
The final protracted season of the show. We're getting to the end. This one titled The Baby Quiz.
Uh-oh.
And it's just it. That's it. Nothing. No deeper meaning there.
No deeper meaning. But if you were to consult the television guide, or the TV guide, as the kids say, you would have read this description about this episode. Larry will do anything, including cheat, to win a game show in which couples compete for a scholarship for their newborns.
All right. So we're getting a second game show episode. That's fine. And again, we are just down to our tight cast, a couple of guest casts, but you got Bronson Pinchot, of course, as Balky, Mark Lindbaker as Larry, Melanie Wilson as Jennifer Appleton, and Rebecca Arthur as Marianne Bartakamus.
And then we'll have a couple of guest casts.
Because there is a game show, so you're going to have a host. You're going to have additional stage hands.
This episode aired on July 30th, 1993.
You know, the other thing that occurred to me looking at these air dates, first of all, we've mentioned the fact how crazy it was that these episodes were filmed a year ago in July 1992. But they decided to take the last season of this show and literally dump it in the summer. When traditionally it's all reruns and movies. Because why? Because nobody watches TV in the summer. Everybody's outside. They're on vacation. So you don't air new things during the summer. And I'm like, that's a little offensive.
It is offensive, insulting. But having just watched the final 3 episodes,
that's a good
maybe
point.
It was a good idea.
I can see maybe why they did dump it. And yes, if you've been, this season, it's not been the greatest and the trend continues. So let's just get through this one. If you want to check it out for yourself, listener, in 2024, you can purchase Perfect Stranger seasons on Amazon Prime Video. Or for free, you go over to plex.tv, make a free account, and all the seasons are there. Or you do some searching on Dailymotion website.
If you prefer chaos.
Yeah. And it's probably been on Dailymotion this whole time, and we didn't even know because that's a crazy website.
All right, let's get through this. Season 8, Episode 4, The Baby Quiz. Act 1 begins, and we're in the kitchen of their big house where they all live together. Marianne's cooking something at the stove, and Balky runs in. And typically, we know this.
Yes,
Balky runs in, and he's like, Marianne, premise of the show.
And that's kind of what happens here. They haven't been doing that the last couple episodes.
Kind of, but it's still protracted, as we're going to find out. Yeah. He doesn't come straight out with, like, what's the problem?
He almost runs in with the plot.
Almost, but
he runs in. He says, did you say what he said? The mailman's almost here. They're waiting for some important mail, I guess.
He's a few doors down. We're going to get the letter. We're waiting for it.
So they're waiting for some big letter.
And they get all excited together.
And then he runs by as Larry and Jennifer enter the kitchen. And Larry's like, hey, what's Balky so excited about? And then he goes, is it some Imposian holiday? Did Mud Day sneak up on us again?
And Marianne goes, Mud Day, like matter of fact, Mud Day is not until next week. But if I were you two, I'd be getting my hats ready.
You need your Mud Day hats. It's very important. That's okay. And then we got a little callback to something from the past. A Mud Day mention.
Mud Day. Yeah.
It's weird. This episode does a couple of things to actually call back to things and give some kind of growth to characters, but it's just
it's not enough.
It's not enough. You'll see.
It's not enough.
But Mud Day callback, love it. So then Balky runs back in, and he's holding 2 envelopes, and he's like, pretending to be surprised. He tells Marianne that they got a letter from the Baby Quiz television show.
And then he goes, oh, look. He looks at the next envelope and kind of like very exaggeratedly says, Jennifer and Cousin Larry got a letter from them too. And then Balky, okay, first of all, before we go on, for the record, I think this whole intro part was very weird, and I've said this before throughout these last episodes, but it really does feel like they let everybody go at the end of last season, and then they're like, oh, we got to make 8 more episodes. Who's around to do some writing? And there were some like interns or whatever, but people who had not watched this show at all or didn't know these characters at all, because none of these lines or behaviors match the characters for me very well.
And there's a lot of padding and filler to get to things for no reason instead of tightening it up.
We literally, as we were watching this, we were like, this could have been written like this and gotten things
you could have started this yes, you could get to the thing a lot faster. And you're right,
cousin listeners, just keep that in mind as we go through this episode.
They don't act like their characters.
They don't act like their characters at all. It's like really bad, not accurate caricatures of what people thought those characters were, having just heard about the show but never watched it.
It kind of becomes a parody of itself. But that is essentially what happens to certain IP when they go on too long.
Yeah.
Which is why, Jerry Seinfeld.
Is like really
Seinfeld
hard.
made the decision to go out when the show was on top, which is smart, even though he went for 9 years.
Yeah.
But really, if it went on, they would have become parodies of themselves.
Right.
Like, it happens to everybody. But this, I don't know what the situation.
Was like particularly egregious.
I don't know what happened between season 7 and 8. And
so much so that I said to you while we were watching this episode, I wonder if Bronson Pinchot and Marklin Baker like read the script and were like, what is this? This is not good. We don't want to do this.
Yeah, what is this?
What is this? Anyway, okay, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but we'll come back to that.
So there's a whole thing here where Balky's pretending like he doesn't know what this letter is about, and he's like, oh, cousin, you got a letter from them too. What a completely unplanned coincidence. And Larry's confused. Why would
Larry's very like grumpy about it, which doesn't match what I would think he'd be like, oh, I could get a story out of this like the other previous game shows.
Did he forget he's a reporter?
Does he even go to work anymore? I don't know. And he's very grumpy about it. He goes, why would some stupid game show want with us?
And then Balky does this just too long defensive thing where he's like, oh, how do we know? Why are you asking us? Stop accusing us with your questions. We have a clue. We're clueless. And Marianne's like, no, we don't know what
we're clueless.
And we don't appreciate the insinuation. I was like, what is going on? This is all unnecessary. And
all unnecessary. Larry's like, I think you're behind this. Balky says, whatever. Why would you say that? And he says,
well, the way he laughs is kind of funny because he's like, ha, ha. That sarcastic laugh. He's like, why would you say that? And then Larry goes, because the address says Jennifer and cousin Larry Appleton.
And then Balky says, well, I guess you caught us with our pants on.
Yes, he has not figured out that saying.
What is it?
Caught me with our pants down.
Yeah.
Not on.
So anyway, then after all this weirdness,
what is the point of this?
To the point, and Balky tells us that he and Marianne found out that the Baby Quiz show, The Baby Quiz, that's the name of the show.
The Baby Quiz.
Was looking for contestants. There's a little alliteration. He said, we thought it'd be wild, wacky, whimsical fun for both families to be on at the same time, meaning the four of them. Balky and Marianne filled out 800 applications for themselves to try to get on the show. And then when he says 800 of our own, they both like do this like painful flexing of their hand, like a cramped hand, but they're both doing left hand matching.
So, but we know Bronson made Balky left-handed,
lefty.
But Marianne is left-handed too.
I guess so.
Did she
Maybe that's why they
become
get
left-handed?
along.
Yes, two left-handers are definitely going to get along because you know why? You're not going to get in each other's way. It's not like if one person's right and one person's left, sometimes it can be awkward.
It was their left hand. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they both flex their left hand.
Yeah.
Meaning Marianne is also a lefty. So the setup is Balky and Marianne filled out 800. They filled out one.
Yeah.
For Larry and Jennifer, and Balky goes to Larry, you open yours first. We can't wait. The suspense is killing us. And Jennifer opens it, and she's like, we were accepted.
So the one application they put in for them got accepted.
Worked.
And Balky's like, hot doggy. He's obviously, if they were accepted with one, then clearly they're going to be accepted with 800 applications. And he's like, now we can all be on it together. And while he's saying this, Marianne opens their letter, and she starts reading it silently, and then she starts getting sad. She goes, no, we won't. We were rejected.
Oh, my God.
Balky. And she starts crying.
And the whole audience goes, and it's kind of emotional. You feel like
why? Maybe the producers were like, these people are obnoxious.
Yes.
Anybody who sends in 800 applications,
you're not getting it.
Putting you on the show.
You're too desperate. But you do feel bad that like Marianne really wanted to go on the show and she's let down and it's so sad. And Balky's like, oh, no. He goes, now they're there, my little cement mixer.
Okay,
He calls her cement mixer.
Is that a
what happened to
fat
my little
joke
lamp
about
chop?
being pregnant? Because
Maybe it's
those cement trucks are round.
That's what I thought. It's cylindrical. It's kind of like a pregnant belly.
When I first heard
mixer.
it, I was like, what is that joke?
Because he usually does a food thing, right?
Yeah.
Like my little lamb chop or little pig snout or whatever.
Again, it's like AI wrote this episode and messed it up. Like somebody who doesn't know the characters.
Yeah.
And like messed up the trope or messed up the gag that's been going for 8 seasons. And like they're just doing it wrong. Everything. Anyway, he says, they're there, my little cement mixer. He's telling her not to be sad. Just because 800 of ours got rejected, that's no reason to be upset. And then he turns to Jennifer and Larry and very painfully says, we are very happy for you. And then Larry's just like, whatever, we're not going on the Baby Quiz show.
Well, but then they both walk over this part where they walk over to the table. Where
Balky and Marianne together.
Balky and Marianne walk over to the table and sit down and then just collapse crying. But if you look at their faces, they're like Marianne is smirking. Rebecca Arthur's got this little smirk
like they're both
about to laugh.
Hysterically.
And then they drop their heads and they're like, ooh.
Exaggerated sobbing with their heads down on the table. Yeah. But I was like, I bet they're laughing inside.
Yes, it's like they couldn't hold it back. And that's when Larry's like, don't worry. We're not going on the baby quiz.
He's like, I'm not about to let my wife and unborn child be exploited just so we can win a year's supply of baby wipes. This is not the Larry Appleton we know. The Larry Appleton we know would have been like, what can I get out of this? Let's exploit this.
Well, he would want to know what the prize was, right? So he can figure out what the thing is.
He's all about exploiting his
so un-Larry-like. And then this next part is also un-Larry-like. Jennifer goes, Larry, I think it would be fun. Now, normally, Larry would
once she's
flip
into
his
something,
tune
he'd
and
be like, oh, yeah.
Oh, I think it's a great idea.
But that's before he was married and knocked her up, you know?
So now he doesn't have to fake interest, and he's like,
I don't need her to. She's gonna stick around because she has my baby
I don't have
now.
to pretend to agree, and he goes,
no,
no, my mind is made up.
So un-Larry like, yeah.
And he tells Balky, why don't you take the letter and try to go in their place? And Balky is very excited. He said he's touched, and he's holding the letter. He's like, it's so generous of you to give up your chance to win your child a college scholarship. And now Larry's ears perk up just like that. He goes, college scholarship? And Balky continues that it's to the school of your choice. And Larry and Jennifer are
Greedy Larry
both
comes
looking
back.
concerned. Greedy Larry comes back. He literally snatches the letter out of their head. He's like, our names are on that letter, and we don't want to deceive those nice game show people. And he pulls the letter back into his hands. He goes, we're going to be going to the baby quiz.
Okay, pause here for a second.
Yeah.
So now we've established stakes for Greedy Larry, right? He heard college scholarship. He's like, okay, but we went through all this fluff to get to establishing these stakes, right? And also, I think it would have been further heightened stakes. Well, before I get to the next part, first of all, it would be further heightened stakes if he wants to impress Jennifer like he usually does. Like she wants to go on and he's like, okay, we have to go on because otherwise she's going to leave me
they didn't do that.
with my child. They didn't do that. Would have been perfect.
Yes.
Secondly, we don't know anything about this college scholarship. I feel like they just mention a college scholarship and they're assuming that we're going to assume that it's like a big deal.
Is it a full ride? Is it a couple grand?
Right.
Is it a couple $100?
So this was my idea. I was like, all that fluff in the beginning could have been easily replaced with going right to the stakes. What if we opened with Larry, like with lots of pieces of paper and a calculator and having just read some report?
Yeah, like there's a
he's a
newspaper.
reporter,
Yes,
right?
he's reading a newspaper.
He's like,
He's
I
writing an
just
article.
read this article. I read this research about how expensive it is to raise babies. Did you know that they need diapers every day? Did you? And then he freaks out about the whole lifespan of a child.
We're never going to be able to afford
And
this baby.
ends at college, right?
Yeah.
Then we got to buy him a car. Then they got to
know how
eat
much
food every
college
day.
is these
and
days?
then new clothes. They grow out of their clothes. And then college. And then have him totally panicked. Like, I'm going to fail as a father.
And maybe you throw in a line that the newspaper is laying people off.
Or
and
like
there's
he
a
tries to
possibility.
get a second
Because
shift
as
or
it is
something.
here, what you see is a couple that
There's no
seems
stakes.
well off,
Right.
that they have money, and he's all of a sudden
Right.
greedy about this vague college scholarship.
So it's not believable.
That he doesn't know even how much it is.
Exactly.
And there was no
And
concern
they have this
for
huge
cost.
giant
And
house.
they live in this
They're
big
not even-
house. They got 2 cars.
But remember
I mean,
when they
come on.
used to freak out about money and stuff?
Yes.
When they were, and so,
But the thing is,
how did he get rid?
But Larry's just filling in the word bubbles on the Dimitri
No, he's
cartoon. He's still a reporter.
Still working
Okay.
with Maytag and Whirlpool. or
Maytag and Whirlpool. Has he never made it to be
Maypole
an
and
investigator?
Tadpole.
Anyways, that is to say, any of that would have been better.
All of that would have been better. It
They
would have
didn't do any of
established
that. They
stakes. It would have made us
didn't do-
believe his
Yes.
desperation
They didn't do any of
for
that.
why he needs to go on this show and
Yeah.
win. And they didn't do any of that. So the rest of this sort of like becomes weird and like flimsy. Anyway, end of the first rant.
There'll be more. So we transition to later that night. We come back. We're in the living room. Larry and Jennifer are sitting on the sofa. You notice there's a poster board to the right of them. It says baby quiz. There's some lines on it. There's a pair of headphones. It appears we are going to be doing some kind of simulated practice of this game
And
show.
Larry's still being grumpy.
He's like, I don't want to do this. Why do we have to do this?
And Jennifer's like, it's going to make them happy, implying that Balky and Marianne really want to do this. Let's make them happy, okay? Marianne comes in wearing like a game show hostess dress or whatever.
She's just dressed up. It's
like a
got
nice
earrings
dress
and she's got a
and-
boombox, a
Yeah.
radio in her hand. You notice
A
that
tape player.
the
Yeah.
cabinet for the stereo is set up next to the sofa.
Turned
as
around
a
like
podium.
a podium, yeah. So she puts on this game show voice. She's like, hello, everybody. Let's give a big baby quiz welcome to our host, Lance Edwards. And then she leans over. She goes, it's really Balky, which is a cute line.
Yeah.
Okay. And she hits she presses play on the tape player and that like game show
Game
intro
show
music,
music
da-da-da,
plays,
da-da-da, whatever. And she starts to dance. And then we see Balky come down the stairs and he's not in a Bumposian suit. He's in a Western suit. But obviously he's borrowed this from someone else in the house who would have
You
a Western
notice
suit.
the sleeves are a little short and the pants are a little
pant
short
legs
because he
are
runs
high.
down the stairs, pumping his air, his fist in the air, runs in front of the sofa.
Like in the 80s and 90s and
it's like,
70s, the game show host would like run in
like Price is Right.
in a suit and
Yeah,
everything.
and he goes and stands by the podium. There's also a glass vase on this stereo cabinet. I'm looking at this stereo cabinet. It was also hilarious because this is what stereos used to be.
Yeah.
Several different
So
large
many
components you had to stack up. And now we don't even have stereos.
No.
Like I got Bluetooth speakers. That's it. I don't have a stereo.
So in just enough time to let the viewers and the audience see that his suit is too short in the arms and legs, Larry looks at Jennifer. He goes with disdain. He goes, he's wearing my suit.
Wearing my suit.
And then Balky puts on this game show host voice, which is the host of Baby Quiz is Lance Edwards. So I guess he's doing his best
So
Lance
he's like
Edwards.
he doesn't have to do the Balky accent, and he does like an American.
It's like
over
Bronson
the top.
just being goofy. Yeah, in another
game
accent.
show, and he's like, "Hey, welcome to the Baby Quiz."
The show that poses the age-old question, hey, you're having a baby, and now what? And he like laughs, and he's like, all right. And I guess this Lance Edwards catchphrase is like always saying, all right, all right.
He says that like, all right.
And he goes, I'm Lance Edwards, and this is my lovely Baby Quiz co-hostess, Tiana. And so it's Marianne playing Tiana. Anyway. And they do this weird, like, I don't know, this weird, I guess it's physical comedy, cutesy act out thing. We can blow past it. They blow kisses to the audience.
Coochie coochie coo.
Yeah.
They go, mwah.
And he pinches Marianne's cheek. And anyway. And then they keep on this like fake game show practice thing. Let's meet our first contestants. And Tiana says, Tiana says, please welcome Larry and Jennifer Appleton from Chicago, Illinois. She says, Jennifer is 8 months pregnant and hasn't seen her feet since February. And Jennifer's just looking at her like,
they're like, what is happening?
Angry.
Larry's looking at them all confused. And then Balky explains how the baby quiz works. Here's how the show. Here's how we'll ask you questions about your pregnancy while your spouse is secured in a soundproof booth.
And Marianne, and he goes, Tiana, and instead of a soundproof booth in their home, she holds a pair of these like
giant headphones.
Like
what before
sound
Beats,
canceling, like radio headphones.
They're those.
They're
headphones.
not sound canceling. They're presumably there's radio playing in them.
Yeah,
So
they used to have the headphones because there's an antenna where you could tune in the radio FM frequencies. There were radio headphones. Remember those?
I remember those.
People would take them to like baseball games so they could hear the commentary and stuff. It was
good.
Yeah, those were weird. That's a weird thing too.
How do they hear the commentary now at baseball games?
I don't know.
You follow it online.
I guess.
Live tweet it.
No, it's still on the radio. So somehow you could tune in on the radio app on your phone. Like it's still on the radio.
All right. Or they're like watching it. They're streaming it at the same time.
Yeah, you could do that too. Or you're watching another
I don't know.
sport.
I don't go to baseball games.
Yeah.
I went to a few and they were very boring. Okay. They're using the radio headphones for the soundproof booth. And then he says, okay, so we put one person in the soundproof booth. We ask the other person about the pregnancy. Then we reunite you and we see how your answers compare. The couple with the most matches wins. Isn't that something? Tell them what they'll win, Johnny. And then he picks up the glass vase, turns it upside down, and kind of like talks up into it like an echo chamber.
Yeah, it gives it like
for the
an
announcer voice.
Announcer effect.
So he turns into Johnny, the voice announcer. He goes, a trip to Mexico. Our winning couple will fiesta and frolic at the fabulous Corona del Corona hideaway. This is all nonsense. I mean, it's like a little cute, but it's like doesn't serve any purpose, any of this.
It's a little cringy, too.
And he doesn't even talk about the scholarship.
No.
He's like,
we don't know what the prize is.
Game.
Yeah.
He's like, but it's just words. So he goes, they'll swim in crystal tide pools and enjoy sumptuous meals at the cafeteria Corona. And then he goes, all prizes non-transferable, subject to availability, holidays and weekends excluded, and it's all for you from the baby quiz. Back to you, Lance. And then he pulls the vase away and he goes, thank you, Johnny. And then he puts the vase again. No, thank you, Lance. And then he's like,
wow.
Anyway, all this for him to act goofy, but it didn't serve
the game is essentially like the Newlywed Game, where you ask the husband what he knows about the wife and you hide the answers. That's what this is. They just turned it into
questions about the pregnancy.
The baby quiz. Yeah, so it continues to stay weird as they start the game, and Balky's like, each question's worth 10 points. And then he goes, Tiana, has cousin Larry been secured in the soundproof booth? And Marianne runs behind Larry and snaps those headphones on his head, and it looks like it hurts. And he's like, ow.
Okay. And so then she's like, all secure. And then, so Larry's listening to radio in these headphones.
Real loud, so he can't hear the question.
Couch. And then he starts with Jennifer in the announcer voice, and he's like, oh, you mentioned backstage that you've been having a particularly difficult pregnancy. Is that right? And you've been a lot of stress, and you've developed a quirky little nervous tick. And then Jennifer does the nervous tick. And
he's like, come on, let's see it.
There
it
is. It's adorable. And he's like, but our question has nothing to do with the tick. And the question is, Jennifer, since you've been pregnant, which part of your body hurts the most? Is it your
upper half
or your lower half?
And he changes his voice every time.
That's kind of funny.
Upper half and lower half. And Jennifer says, my lower half, I get terrible leg cramps. And Balky Johnny is like, or is it John? No, what's Lance? Balky Lance.
Balky Lance.
He's like, all right, let's bring back cousin Larry Appleton.
And no, even as Lance, he says cousin Larry Appleton.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Appleton.
Cousin Larry Appleton in like an American accent. That's kind of funny.
And see how well he knows the mother of his child. So then they pull off the headphones, and then he goes to him. He goes, "You and I were chatting backstage, and you mentioned to me that One of your greatest fears is that your unborn child might inherit your short, stubby legs and your hammer toes.
Your hammer toes.
What's a hammer toe?
I love it. He goes, your hammer toes. Father had them. They're no fun. And as
So
he's
weird.
saying that, Larry is so mad. He slowly starts to stand up like he's going to pummel Balky, and Jennifer pulls him back down on the couch.
That's great.
Father had them. They're no fun. It's such a weird thing.
I don't even know what hammer toes
what
are.
hammer toes are either.
Should we look it up?
No, I don't know if I want to look that up. I'm just going to imagine
Is it like
it's just
when
short,
those toes are like your
Just
toenails
flat.
are like short and
I don't know.
stubby?
I'm just imagining short, flat, stubby toes.
I don't know.
What hammer
Gross.
toes, if that's a
Okay.
real thing.
Balky asks him the first question. We asked Jennifer, since you've been pregnant, which part of your body hurts the most? Is it your upper half or your lower half? And immediately Larry goes, easy question. She has constant headaches and a stiff neck. Definitely upper half. And Balky goes, ooh, I'm sorry. No, she said she had leg cramps. That'd be lower half. And then Jennifer and Marianne puts a big red zero
go to the
on the
board and put a
scoreboard or
circle and
whatever.
a line to it.
And Jennifer is looking at Larry incredulous, and she goes, Larry, I get leg cramps every night. Where have you been the last 32 weeks? Do we know each other? Have we met? Okay, stop right here, because
Yikes.
this is very important. This in our alternate beginning, they could have played up this too, that for like all of her pregnancy,
He's not
Larry's
paying
not paying
attention.
attention.
Yeah.
They could have like set that up at the beginning of this episode, and the fact that he's stressed about money or something. But anyway.
Well, they followed up with the joke about him that he does really not pay attention.
Yeah.
He's like, that's just the first question. The next question is probably going to be something about food cravings. And he's like, hey, I happen to know you have a thing for ice cream.
Jennifer goes, Pop-Tarts.
He goes, Pop-Tarts. I know that. And he looks scared and confused like he didn't know that.
Even we knew that. We saw it in the. They're
remember all the
preloaded in the
Pop-Tarts? Remember all
toasters.
the Pop-Tarts he was eating?
Don't you remember preloading the toaster?
Yeah, you got to preload the Pop-Tarts.
Okay, so
That's the end of their little practice session. Now it's
which
time
has
for,
taken nearly half the episode.
It's taken way too long.
Okay,
a lot of it was unnecessary. As we transition, we see an outside shot of the studio on the marquee. It says the baby quiz. This shot looks familiar to me.
the outside shot was the same
establishing.
outside shot used for Lydia Live.
I thought so. There's only
and Uncle Shaggy's Doghouse. There's only one
There's
TV
one
studio
TV
in all of
studio,
Chicago.
and everyone has to share it, and it's hard to book time because it's always crowded.
Yeah.
Yes.
It actually is the same establishing shot because if you pay very close attention and go back,
You see the same guys walking in.
the same B-roll.
Same B-roll.
Of the,
And then we cut to inside the studio, and I noticed something right away.
Oh, my
So
goodness.
the inside of the studio, there's a big baby quiz sign. There's two big like bassinet things. There's a big sound booth in the middle. But the back wall is giant toys, and the wallpaper is like drawn on with crayon. The windows are drawn
Wait a
on.
minute.
And I'm like, this
Where
looks very
have we
familiar.
Seen that
This, I
before?
believe, is the exact same set from when they imagined they were babies. Yes, sir. That's my baby.
What kind of what must what was that conversation in the production room? It was just a few episodes ago. Nobody's
No,
gonna remember.
The conversation
the
is
wallpaper.
They have stopped giving us money. We have nothing else we can do.
We can't change. We don't have money to change it
Listen, we
enough to
barely
look
had
like a
money
different room.
to pay these people right now.
Maybe
It's cost cutting. Just
And
use
they're
it.
just get
Nobody
through
cares.
it. Yeah,
Yes.
it was
That
the exact same room.
It's fine. You reuse, you recycle, you repurpose. I don't know. They could have changed the colors.
They could have
but
done something.
the drawn on wallpaper and the windows,
Very
and everything.
distinct, and
Yeah.
the windows, the doors, that giant door.
Yeah. So Balky and Marianne have accompanied them to this, and they're very excited walking around the set. And Jennifer turns to Larry and tells him she's very nervous. Apparently, they played this game with Balky for 2 hours yesterday, and they didn't get anything right. They are not on the
They don't
same
know
page.
each other
They
at
do
all.
not know each other. She's afraid they're going to make fools of themselves on television. And Larry says something weird. He's like, we're not going to make fools of ourselves. If we just answer the questions the way we practiced, everything will be fine. And Jennifer's like, what if they don't ask those questions? And then all smarmily, Larry's like, I have a hunch they will. So this is a clue. Something's up. It's very weird. And then we finally get to meet the host of the baby quiz as this man with a big smiley game show face and a shiny silver suit walks in, and he goes, hey, here's my lucky contestants.
And it's the same exact voice that Bronson was doing.
Yeah, he did a very good imitation because he sounds just like it. He does the same like weird laugh. The guy laughs like it's just
like,
weird.
How are you? Who's got a bun in the oven?
Like,
all right.
All right. Cheesy jokes, game show, over the top. He's a very over the top. And Larry's like, we're the contestants. He extends his hand, introduces themselves. And he's like, nice to meet you, Appletons. And then Balky gasps and jumps back. This is a dream come true. He turns to Marianne. He goes, it's him. It's Lance Edwards.
And Lance Edwards says, you must be my other contestants. And they're like, no. Sadly, we applied, but we were overlooked 800 times. Balky says. And Marianne's like, but we have front row tickets.
So they'll be in the audience. And then Balky just can't, he goes, I can't contain myself any longer, Lance. I have to let you know.
My favorite game show
You
host.
are my favorite game show host. And he runs over and he hugs Balky. And so Marianne.
He hugs Lance.
Balky hugs Lance. And Marianne has this slim gray rectangular object
horizontal
in her hand.
It looks like an ice cream sandwich.
It kind of looks like an ice cream sandwich.
Holds
looks
it
like
up to her eyes, and she makes some clicking noises.
And she's taking a picture of Balky and Lance.
Film camera.
We'll get to that in a second. That's what, because there's another part where we have to explain this. So it's a weird, but looking at it now, it's a weird device that she's holding in her hand. People had with them everywhere.
We had one.
Yes, everybody had one of these. So Balky is hugging Lance very
so they're
tightly.
taking pictures, etc.
And the stagehand walks up.
The stage manager walks on. She says, Lance, we have a problem. And Lance is like, don't worry, I can handle this guy.
I can handle that.
She's like, no. The other game show contestants went into labor. They're on their way to the hospital. And Larry, for a moment, is excited. He thinks he's going to get out of this. He's like, guess that means we win by default.
We win.
And Lance is like, no, this obviously this happens all the time on this show. We just pick another couple from the studio audience. And as soon as he says that, Balky and Marianne are like, oh. And then Lance turns to them. He's like, here's kind of a kooky thought. How about you two? And they're so excited. And he's like, it's a dream come true. And he goes to Marianne to hug Marianne. And he hands the camera thing, the weird thing she's holding, to Lance, saying, Lance, can you take a picture of us? Capture the moment.
Capture the moment.
And he's like, sure. And they put on these goofy expressions on their face together.
Surprise expressions.
Lance is like pressing the button on this weird horizontal thing. And then Balky's like, you got to advance it. So then Lance makes the clicky noise. Now we have to explain what that means to people who don't remember these cameras.
Basically, this was a little device that had a cartridge in it that had photosensitive film and two spools, and you would literally press a button so a little window would open, light would hit the film, and the window would close, and then when they were done with the picture, you had to crank the thing to move.
It was like a little wheel that made a cranking noise.
Film over so they could take the next picture, and you only had, get this, listener, 24 to 36 pictures
on that reel
before you had to replace the thing. Yeah. Also, you didn't see the pictures right away. You didn't even know if it came out right.
Then you took that spool of film
Then you had to take that to a physical location, or sometimes just bring the whole camera, take it out, hand it to somebody.
And replace it with another one.
And then you went home. And then 2 days later, you have to come back to this location, and they would hand you
an envelope,
5x7, 4x6 prints,
negative, sometimes duplicates. If you had wanted to share with your friends,
you wanted a second set if it's baby photos.
If you want to share with friends,
this was a normal thing. But doesn't that sound wild?
It sounds so wild. I don't even know if, I think you just explained it the best we have words for. But I don't even know if somebody who's never seen that would have even understood that explanation.
Is that? It's like
we had one. I remember it was so exciting to take it to school functions and take pictures,
and then just undeveloped rolls of film that you never got to sending. You're like, I wonder what's on these, but it was a whole thing, and not anymore. Anyway. That's all different.
Anyway, yeah, but basically they're taking selfies here. All right, let's pause for a minute and talk about these. There's two guest cast, the Lance and then the stage manager who walked on. Lance Edwards is played by a guy named Dan Gilvezan. Who, like all the other cameos in the show, had a long list of credits to his name. A lot of voiceover and animation.
Yeah, his voice is very distinctive. He's got this game show host.
He's got the superhero villain, cartoon villain.
I
voice.
love this list. I watched all of these. He had voice credits from Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, the Pound Puppies, Transformers, G.I. Joe, Gem and the Holograms, The Real Ghostbusters, Family Dog, The Tick was a great cartoon, Jackie Chan Adventures. I used to watch that. Grim and Evil. I mean, then he also showed up on Archie Bunker's Place, Hill Street Blues, Alice, 30-something, Newhart, Funky Brewster, Family Ties, Moonlighting, Alf, Who's the Boss,
all the great shows of the era.
Murphy Brown, Step by Step. This guy was everywhere. Third Rock from the Sun, NYPD Blue,
Boston Legal. And notably, he was a spokesperson for, we don't have this in Chicago, but for Jack in the Box.
Jack in the Box back in the day. That's like West Coast.
California
yeah.
Okay, and then the stage manager was a woman named Victoria Hoffman. She had also a nice little list. She had been on Cheers, Amen, Martin, Mad About You, That's My Bush.
Oh,
Whoa,
that
was
my
a
Bush.
good
I remember
show.
that show.
Gilmore Girls. Oh, who was she on Gilmore Girls? Monk, Will and Grace, King of Queens, also Boston Legal.
She had one line, and she delivered it great.
Yes.
Victoria.
Very well
that's
done.
the end of the first act. Listener, join our Facebook group where you can still comment on the final 2 episodes of the entire series. There are threads there.
Yes.
But if you're listening to this in the future, it is a great place to meet other fans of Perfect Strangers, relive the moments that you liked, and listeners of this show. So it'll always be around.
It will forever and ever. We've done
until Facebook decides to turn it off.
Yeah, that's true. So at the end of Act 1, we have set up some very weak, shaky stakes for Larry wanting to win this.
But you know what? They're on a game show. Remember the last time they were on a game show? Remember all the wacky stuff? We got to see the game.
All greedy and excited. Yeah, so maybe we'll get to see
Maybe we'll get to see more messiness, some physical comedy, maybe.
But we also have stakes for Balky and Marianne. They just really wanted to be on this show, and because they're just goofy
nice.
and excited,
After
and they got on. So now we've got both couples on this show, and it's about to start. Act 2 starts. Inside, in this room that's the same as when they were playing baby versions of themselves before, off to our left is like these... they're
like these big strollers.
Giant stroller-shaped chairs. So Jennifer and Marianne are sitting in one sort of stroller bassinet thing.
Yeah.
And Larry and Balky are sitting in the other one.
And we should point out there's these bars that go across the front, kind of like in a roller coaster.
Yeah.
And you see the girl, Tiana, I guess that's Tiana, walk over there, and these bars go up and down so that you could go
in and out
sit.
of the seats.
And yes, and when you sit down, the bar goes down. Okay?
Remember that. Pin that. So we meet Tiana, and Lance tells the daddies, the gentleman, to follow Tiana to the soundproof booth.
So she's walked over, she's lifted up the 2 bars, and she turns around and puts her hands up, right? It's a wide shot. They then cut to this close-up shot of Lance and Balky and Marianne. And what do you notice?
The bar is
back down. And what is this shot? Is essentially both of them
for no reason
laughing, going, ha, 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 ha. All right, to each other.
For no reason. And then they cut
back to the wide shot where the bars are up again.
And this bothered you so
this stuff
much.
Always bothers me.
But this one in particular, because obviously they did this in editing afterwards.
Yeah.
So there was no use for that shot.
No,
they could have just
there was no line given. It was just them going, all right, why? But I always in my head, I'm like,
Did they think we're not going to see that?
Editing this, and you're like, boss, by the way, I got a problem here. If I go from here to here, you see the bars down.
Well, they had a crappy editor because they couldn't afford a good editor.
And somebody saw this and basically said, you know what, it doesn't matter.
It's fine.
We're running out of time here.
No one's watching
I can't afford
this
it anymore.
Yeah.
Just keep it going. Just get it done.
Yeah.
Like, they had no other shot.
There was no
other
quality control anymore.
They couldn't go back. When they originally shot that, did they not? It was out of order. Did they not remember?
Yeah,
what happened?
I don't know what happened. We need to know how does this happen.
How do you just let it air?
Very egregious.
What do you think people are going to think?
It's not one of these little bloopers that you have to read about on the internet that you miss.
It was so obvious.
It was very obvious.
Like the bar's back down. Why would
you don't miss
You
this
didn't
one.
even need that little cutaway.
At all.
So why did you even do that?
Why?
I need to know these answers to these questions. What happened?
Man, we got to track down people who worked on this
stuff like this happens. How does it happen? Is it incompetence? Is it laziness? Is it really slipped through the... I don't know what it is. I'm so
Like, what was
curious.
the show where there was a Starbucks cup?
Oh, Game of Thrones. Now, that is unforgivable. This is Game of Thrones. In no instance can you imagine.
And they left it in.
They left it in. But
Why?
again, there's a quality control. So you could easily touch
They
that
have
out.
money too.
Yes, it's HBO.
And
they could have easily touched it out.
We have AI.
Somebody
now.
watched that and missed a Starbucks cup. Oh, in the shooting,
Game of Thrones,
while you're shooting it in
a
post,
fictional
while
world.
you're editing
Yeah.
it. No, but like, how does that happen?
It's so funny to me. People are making money doing these jobs. They're making a living.
That was HBO. That was
HBO.
That was ridiculous. I remember seeing that. I was like, oh no.
Okay. So anyway, moving on. We're almost through.
Bars up, bars down, bars back up. Whatever.
Okay. So Tiana takes the gentleman into the middle of the set, and there's this big like plexiglass box right in the middle.
Yeah, with
This
two
is the
chairs
soundproof
inside.
booth.
Yeah, it's clear. And so
And
this
they
is kind
go
of
in
funny.
the-
Larry
yeah.
goes in, and Tiana's like waving, doing the smiling, waving the person in.
She doesn't talk at all.
She doesn't
Yeah.
talk at all, and Balky just keeps talking to her and asking her questions.
And she's like trying to wave him into the
Apparently,
box.
she wrote a book, and he read it, and he's telling her how he loves the stuff in her book, like your layman's slant on the Middle East was mesmerizing. And there's a chapter
Interesting.
called "There's no such thing as too much moisturizer."
What is this book? It
I don't know.
sounds
It's
so
about
weird.
the Middle East politics and moisturizer, and she shoves him in. And he's like, "You have no pores on
Oh
your
my
skin,
God.
do you?"
All
So it's
all
just
of his
filler,
jokes are like really
just
weird.
bad
They're not super
filler
funny.
panic. She
They
doesn't
don't
say
connect
anything.
to each
No.
other. There's no like.
I don't understand.
Again, it's as if someone who they're writing like a caricature of what they think the show is without ever having watched the show.
And now
Like
we're
AI
in the
doing it.
soundproof booth, and all of this is just like so random and disjointed, and it goes to just weird places. But there is a point
It's
to it.
so
At
weird.
one point, so they're inside the booth, and Balky's like, "Oh, so we made it in the booth. Can you believe it?" He's like, "It's kind of like a big fish tank, isn't it?" And he does that thing where you suck in your cheeks and you
Fish face.
you do fish face,
Yeah.
and you move your lips up and down, and he's doing fish face.
And so then we hear Lance outside the booth. And he's talking to the girls, and he says, "All right, let's begin the baby quiz."
And then we don't get to hear the game because
No.
it cuts back to the cousins in the booth.
In the booth,
You don't really get to see any of this game.
And then
It's
there's like
not
this
even important
whole
what's happening.
drawn out conversation about Belky's like, I hope they get a good shot of us on the special booth camera.
Yeah. So there's a
And
booth
then
camera.
Larry's
And
like, what? And then Balky has to explain it's a special camera and they have it
Camera.
focused on the booth. It's called the special booth camera.
camera.
Because they love to get shots of the daddies making fools of themselves.
And then he starts to do
does
the fish thing
lips
again. And Larry's like, they're not going to get any shots of you or me making fools of ourselves. All right, stop it. Let's just keep quiet. And Bucky's like, why do we got to keep quiet? It's a soundproof booth. Nobody can hear us. And he goes, let's see if it works. And while he's saying that, Larry turns and leans closer to Balky. And Balky's like, his head is right by Larry's ear.
And
And
he
Balky suddenly just goes,
screams,
Marianne! Like right into
His
Larry's ear. And you cut to a outside of the booth audio shot while the game show's happening. You can't hear him at all. It is
So weird.
It is soundproof.
And so we hear Lance asking more questions, and
Yeah.
it's really awful stuff. He goes, "Ladies, how much weight have you gained so far during your pregnancy?" And then we just hear that one question. Then we cut back to the guys, and Balky's like, "Oh, he's like, it really works. It's soundproof." He goes, "Well, I'll be my uncle's monkey," okay, this is actually a funny line, very like Balky to mess up the saying, but he didn't deliver it in the same way he has for the past
He kind of
6
just
years.
threw
you
away
know?
this line and kept
He
going.
didn't even say it in a heavy Balky
Yeah.
accent. It was like it was not emphasized the same way.
Yeah,
it's
it's
like they're
kind of
just
rushed.
phoning it in at this point.
Yeah, I'll be my uncle's monkey. We can
And
say
like
anything we
nobody,
want.
the audience doesn't even laugh at that,
Yeah.
and like I don't know, it just missed. But I think this is probably one of the better word plays of the episode. I'll be my uncle's monkey, and he's like, we can say anything we want. And then Larry sits down in a chair and pulls Balky down to sit down in the next chair. Balky's still calling Marianne, Marianne, and Larry slaps his hand over his mouth. He's like, all right, that's enough. Let's just stay quiet, okay? And then let's just stay quiet and behave ourselves. And he's like sitting all properly in the chair. Balky sits back in his chair. He's on our right and Larry's on our left. And then this next part, you're gonna have to do it. It's so weird. I didn't get it.
There's
It
this
didn't
whole thing
fit.
of Balky going, cousin, those lights, they're so bright, they're hurting my eyes. The studio lights. Larry's like, they're studio lights. But Belky's just obsessed. He's like, they're so bright, I can't even look into her. I can't even look anywhere. And Larry's like, don't stare into them. And Larry's just like, don't stare into them. Look at something else. Just look at something else. And Belky's like, oh, I'm going to look at something else. There's nothing else to look. I'm going to look at something else. Look at something else will be fine. So Belky tries to look away from those lights, but he can't. And he turns back. He goes, cousin, you know what? Those lights, they draw me. And then he gets up and he like puts his hands on the glass and he's kind of like humping the glass. He's like, the lights are penetrating me. They fascinate me. He goes, I know they're going to fry my retinas, but I cannot take my eyes off them. And then he sits down quickly. He goes, I'm going to try to look away. I'm going to look over here. And then he gets up again. He goes, I cannot look at those lights. I don't understand what.
He's like freaking out.
He's freaking about these stage lights, which are only bothering him. And what I was thinking was like, it's not hurting Larry. You're sitting right next to him.
You're
like,
sitting
you
right next to him. But
just
only,
at you.
Yeah.
It's just affecting Belky.
So he's like, and in fact it is, because he's like, cousin, I need to change places with you. If I don't, I'm going to lose my mind. And Larry's like, okay, fine. Larry just wants him to like be quiet and sit.
Calm down.
He's like, fine, let's switch places. They switch seats. And he's like, okay, now just sit down, stop embarrassing me. And then we cut back to the sound scene outside. And Lance is saying, Jennifer, what animal will your husband say best describes you during pregnancy? And Jennifer's like, why hide behind a question, Lance? Let's face it, I'm a whale. And frankly,
none of the stuff when it cuts back to the game is doing anything.
Yeah,
like
nothing.
They're so weak and just
also it's like
unnecessary.
3 episodes now at least where Jennifer's complaining about being
there'll be more of that.
Fat and like she's still gorgeous. The fake belly isn't even that big. I'm like, this isn't believable. You can't be a gorgeous skinny white lady being like,
just
I'm
be like,
fat.
I don't want to be the fattest person
nobody
in the room.
like whatever.
Nobody's buying that.
So whatever. But it's like such a trope. They're like, she's pregnant. Obviously, she's going to hate her body or whatever. All right. She's not a whale, but she says, let's face it, I'm a whale. And then we cut back to inside the booth, and Balky's now sitting on the left side. Larry's on the right. And he's like, Balky's all fidgety, and he's like not sitting comfortably in this chair. Larry's like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm trying to get comfortable, but this chair is like iron.
This chair is like iron.
He goes, this is unbelievably comfortable. It's so hard. It's like, what
jumping up and down.
And he's freaking out again. Again, this is all like not like Balky at all. Like it's like he's on speed or something, or he's on drugs. I don't know. He's like some kind of torture. It looks like the chair. He's like, the interesting thing is it looks just like that chair, but it's whatever. Again, so
looks like the chair I was in.
All of these conversation bits are like separate, disjointed little gags that don't go together at all, and it's not serving anything.
So then he gets up on the arm and turns sideways and sits on it, and he's like, maybe if I just lean, and he leans into Larry, pushing them both all the way over to the right against the glass. And Larry's like, okay, all right, let's switch places again. He's like, I don't want to switch places. He's like, let's switch places.
He's like, I like this place. I didn't like that place because the lights were in my eyes. I like this place. I want that chair, though.
Like, I haven't had a problem with this. The chair is what I want. I have to have that chair. So now he doesn't want to switch places.
He's like, I want the chair. And then they start arguing. Chairs. Larry's like, no. And Balky's like, just give me the chair. And he starts grabbing the chair. He's like, cousin, I want that chair. I'm going to go crazy if I don't get that chair. Now get out of it. And they're wrestling.
He does say this line about, what is the
Iron Maiden torture thing?
To be comfortable because this chair is some kind of Iron Maiden torture thing.
I don't know what that's supposed to be.
So this reminded me of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. The Iron Maiden, it's 2 things. It was an 80s heavy metal band, and it was a medieval like torture device.
Okay.
So you don't remember Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, the first one, where they go back to the Middle Ages?
No.
And the one king goes, because they love hard rock, they love rock and roll, right? So the one guy goes, put them in the Iron Maiden. And they're like, excellent. And then the guy goes, execute them. And then they look at each other and they go, bogus. That's the best clip from Bill and Ted. Put them in the Iron Maiden. Excellent.
Keanu, right?
Yeah, Keanu and Alex Winters.
Okay, let's pause
That's
again.
What he said. Iron Maiden is what I thought about.
And so, but they argue, and Balky, this is not characteristic of him. He goes crazy. He's like, I'm going to go crazy. I need that chair. But wouldn't this have been a lovely spot to do an old gag that we're used to from the past 6 years where Balky goes, cousin, I want that chair. I need that chair. And he's like, cousin, I want that. And he starts crying, and then Larry gets
like,
in.
okay, you got that chair.
Yeah. Like,
No, they didn't watch the
That
show.
would have been so cute. These people didn't watch
They
the
didn't-
show
that
at
never
all.
happened.
They created new
It's just
Balky
a
and
whole
new
new
Larry.
thing.
All right,
But
moving on.
he is trying to like physically yank Larry out of the chair. He gets up. Larry pushes Balky back in his chair. He says, "Stop it, stop it." He goes, "Listen to me." And Larry quickly takes his hand and pushes Balky's head behind to the plexiglass behind him. And then Balky puts his hand up and takes Larry's head and smashes it in the plexiglass behind them. But then Larry continues. He's like, Cousin Larry's not switching chairs. He is not moving. He goes, in fact, Cousin Larry's just going to sit here, pretend that he doesn't even know you. And he crosses his legs and in protest. And he sits there. And then Balky goes, Cousin. And then he goes, oh. And Larry goes, I'm sorry. Have we met? Being all
of
mean.
this is so fabricated. It doesn't make any sense. Why is he getting mad at him? Like they both want to be there, presumably. I don't know. Like,
anyways, they cut back to the game show with Lance, and it doesn't even matter what he says. He says all right again, and then they cut back to inside the booth, and Larry's sitting there with his feet crossed. Right, the bottom of his left foot is
facing Balky,
and Balky notices something. He goes, "Hey, you have writing on the bottom of your shoe." And Larry quickly puts his foot down. He's like, "What?" And Balky's like, "You have writing on your shoe." And Larry's like, No, I don't. And Balky goes, "Let me see that shoe." And he tries to grab
gives him the other shoe. He raises his other
raises
foot.
the other leg. And he goes, "No, not this shoe." Balky goes, "This one says little man's footwear."
And then Larry pulls it
He's
back.
like, yeah, that's not where I shop.
And then he tries to get out of it. He's like, "Oh yeah, there's writing on the bottom of my shoe. It's my Christmas list, and I can't let you see it because I don't want to spoil the surprise."
They both kind of do the fake laugh, and Balky's like fake laughing with him, like,
and then Balky lunges for his foot to try to see it, and he turns Larry upside down. Mark Linn-Baker's now doing a headstand in the left corner, left front corner of the booth.
Balky has turned him upside down really quickly,
and he's like holding his foot to see the bottom. And he goes, so yeah, Larry's in a headstand, and he goes, Balky goes, aha. Jennifer's favorite food is Pop-Tarts, so this is your Christmas list?
Then they cut briefly back to the game show. You hear Lance asking the girls some questions, but the girls are like looking over because they see Larry doing a headstand. They're like, what is happening out there?
And presumably all the TV the audience and the viewers.
Yeah, the special booth camera is catching all of this. Let's not forget. And then Balky does something really weird. He like pinches Larry on the butt, and then
it's weird.
And then Larry almost kicks him in the head, and then he's smacking him. And then Balky pulls Larry up by his hair,
and then Balky's like, "These are the answers to the game show. You've been cheating."
He got caught.
He goes and he pulls Larry up, and he goes, "Cheating is revolting practice." And then he pulls. They're standing now. He pulls Larry's head all the way back in an arc and then slams it forward into the plexiglass. And Mark Linn-Baker does that thing where you
put
fake
your hand
it with
up
your
there,
hand to make a big
thud. It looks
pretty violent. Yeah.
It looks like a good impact.
And then Larry goes, "Balky, I couldn't help it." And then he does the same thing to Balky, and he does the same thing with his hand.
You're like, oh.
And then they start to joke each other, and then they remember they're on camera. They're like, camera.
And they're like, oh.
Okay. And then we hear the explanation from Larry. He said, "I had no choice. When I couldn't answer answers with Jennifer yesterday, I panicked. So I called the baby quiz, and I told them I was doing a story on the show, and they sent me 150 questions as research. And I only did it so I could win a scholarship for my child." Okay. Pause there. This is a lot of telling that would have been a great episode. Great to see. If we cut out all the weird stuff that we just went through, like this acted out with the stakes that we had set up in the beginning about feeling nervous about how expensive a child is.
Yeah.
And then him actually going through, we see him like failing the questions and then pretending to be a reporter because he used to do that stuff. We used to see him do that
when he
stuff.
was a reporter?
And then they sent him the answers, and that could have been a funny episode. Like that would have been a much better way to progress this, in my opinion. And I'm no TV writer, so whatever.
Because this way, we don't really know why he's so agitated.
Exactly.
When
There's
they get
no
in the
stakes.
booth
We don't get it.
He confesses that he wrote the things on his feet.
So,
we don't know that.
There's so many things happening in this episode, and many of them are unnecessary.
Yeah.
But this should have been the crux. Like Larry's being Larry. He's panicking about the expense of having a child for the next 18 years or whatever. And then he does something deceitful and slimy to try to win money.
And then instead of the soundproof booth, it would have been funny if Balky and Marianne do get on the show and they don't ask him those questions that he thought. So all of his cheating was for naught. And you see the game and they fail spectacularly.
We see the game like we
the game
saw
show.
when they were on the toilet seat or the grocery store.
Or bobbing for whatever in the chocolate pudding. I wanted to see the game show. They don't show you any of the game or the rounds. They just tell you about it later. That should have been that.
I don't know. Like, do you think that the producers or the writers or whatever were like, oh, we've had game shows before and nobody liked those episodes? Everybody liked those episodes. Why wouldn't you just do that again? You did like 2 Myposian cold remedies and 2 trips to Vegas. Why not just do another fun game show?
I don't know. Whatever happened with the season, I feel like they just didn't care and they just needed to write something because it was a contract. It was contractual.
But I like our episode better. Yes. And maybe someday some TV people will hear us talk about this and hire us for our brilliant ideas.
So anyways, Balky cannot condone this cheating, he tells Larry, and he's going to tell Lance and blow his spot and stop the game. And Larry's like, oh, you're going to tell Lance? And you're going to turn me in? And then he goes, fine. I just hope you can live with the consequences. And he turns to the corner dramatically and puts his head in his shoulder, raises his arm, and leans against the side. And
like, woe is me.
And this gets Balky. And Balky goes, what consequences?
And Larry goes, he turns on his manipulation.
Yes, he's very overly dramatic.
He goes, a child's shattered dreams, a child's pain, his sorrow, his agony. And then he comes to the front of the plexiglass box and he looks forward into the audience or whatever, into the future, into the air. And he does that thing that he's done with Balky before. We've seen him do this
before. He goes, look,
manipulating him. Look, Balky, look.
And
Balky looks and he goes,
Appleton snow job has begun.
Yes. And he goes, look at that on the college campus. Look, you see happy students off to their first day of class. Oh, but there's one little boy who just stands and watches. Little boy, college campus.
What is the little boy doing at the college?
Yeah. It's Larry Jr. And the other students just point and laugh as they go on their way. They're playing keep away with his dreams. Oh, no. And he wants to go to class. He wants to go, but he can't. He can't because his Uncle Balky robbed him of his college scholarship. Oh, we don't even know how much this scholarship is.
No.
Oh, look, Balky, look. He's starting to cry. His little tear is dropping into his empty notebook. See him, Balky? Do you see him crying out there? Oh, God, my boy.
So what's interesting,
he starts sobbing.
Yes, this time, instead of Balky immediately getting caught up in the emotion and the sadness, the whole time Balky's looks really confused. And he's like looking at Larry.
Pointing.
He's looking where Larry's pointing. He's not really, and you're like, wait a minute, he's not buying this. It appears that Balky is not buying this because finally Balky taps Larry on the head with one finger on the forehead and looks at him and goes, you know what? There's nothing out there. There's just nothing out there. You always point. I always look. There's nothing out there. I've just realized this is a sick game you've been playing with Balky for 6 years, and I'm tired of it. Just tired of it. He goes, now, if you'll excuse me, I'll be getting those answers off the bottom of your foot. And Balky grabs his foot again. Now, this is a little bit of growth on Balky's side.
Yes.
As much as we are ragging on the writers, they are doing some things like these callbacks. And after 6 years, it makes sense Balky would not fall for this again. Don't we always complain Balky's falling for the same thing over and over again? He finally has figured out this is a Cousin Larry snow job.
Another thing that would have been fun was if it was a Balky snow job and he turned the table somehow.
If he did it to Larry.
Yeah. It was
the cousin, look.
Like explaining to him how he wants to be on, like in an earlier part of the episode, how badly they want to be on. He's like, look, my son, little. Okay, anyway.
That would have been good. So, he grabs his foot and Larry's face is pressed against the sound booth. It looks funny, awkward. And,
so it was nice.
And that's it for the game show. We don't get to see anything else because it crossfades to later that night, outside shot of the house at night. I wanted to see the actual game show. What happens on the game show?
Okay, wait. Before we go to the end of this, we spent near half the episode just in their living room in the practice game show.
Yeah.
Which really, we didn't see them even practice one question, but it was just for Balky to do
There's a whole voice.
Announcer voice.
Yes.
And then half the episode in the game show without ever really seeing the game show. So it was like there was no main pull of this episode. What was the main part supposed to be? We don't know because it was all over the place with different things going on, and I don't know, half. I don't really get. Like, usually we can say, like, oh, it feels like they had this idea and they wrote this episode around this one gag.
Yeah.
But I can't even figure that out.
It's kind of all over the place. It's kind of disjointed, unfocused.
What was the motivating gag?
It's just stuff that's happening.
Yeah. Was it Balky doing the announcer voice? Was that the thing they wanted to write around?
And then the physical comedy in the booth, maybe. But that the game show would be the thing,
the main thing.
I think the announcer voice was even
some story about how
I don't know.
Larry's not paying attention to Jennifer. Like, even that wasn't built up that much. It was just like there the whole time.
Yeah, he
but it wasn't like the main point of the episode. I don't know what the main point.
There's no point. There's no point. Just like the last couple episodes.
There was nothing. Okay, so
what happened? What happened? Let's find out.
So we find out. We see them coming home.
Yes.
And Marion and Balky come in first through the front door. They're like dancing, and they're wearing these Baby Quiz Champion t-shirts over their clothes.
Yeah, and they're
like dancing along
happy.
and they're singing the Baby Quiz theme song.
Jennifer and Larry enter, and Larry
sort of like drag themselves in. They're like disheveled.
His tie is loose, his shirt is untucked, and he's missing one shoe and sock. Like one foot is barefoot, and the other.
What happened? Did he get beat? Did someone beat him up for cheating, or was this?
Well, I think I can explain once we continue. But yes, something happened. His coat's all messed up. He only has one shoe on, and I was like, "What happened?" And Balky and Marianne are dancing, and Jennifer turns to Larry and goes, "Larry, I'm glad Balky turned you in. You deserved it." Harsh. And Balky's like, actually, Jennifer, I didn't have to turn in cousin Larry. The game show people saw the writing on his feet when we knocked the booth over, and they had to pry us out with the jowls
of life.
Jowls of life. So that's why he's all disheveled. They kept his shoe for evidence. Maybe. The whole booth fell over. I don't know. I was confused also.
Why isn't Balky disheveled? Oh, maybe
he was also in the booth.
The t-shirt's covering his.
Yeah, and then he had to go on the show later. So I don't know, and they kicked him. I don't know. And then Larry's like, if you ask me, those game show people take their job way too seriously. And Marianne's like, oh, I don't know. They did let Balky and me finish the game with another couple. And Balky goes, and we did win that college scholarship for little Robespierre or Marge. As
Those are their name choices.
Those are the names they picked. It's a boy. Robespierre.
Robespierre was like a French philosopher or something.
Who is Robespierre? Let's look him up.
I think it was like a French somebody.
I love that name. It's so random. And
Maximilien Robespierre,
French lawyer and
deputy of the French National. Oh yeah,
and the French Revolution.
Former deputy French National Assembly. Yeah.
So he was a controversial figure of the French Revolution.
Oh yeah.
But it's funny the contrast between Robespierre and Marge. Like Marge Simpson. Simpsons was on.
Is this The Simpsons was on already at this point, right?
Like who kept naming their kid Marge
really
in the 90s.
Wasn't in our lexicon
before.
No,
that's an old timey name.
Sure, for Margaret, maybe.
Marge? But little Robesy.
Robespierre.
That's a great name. And then this is kind of a funny little interaction because Jennifer's like, okay, Marianne, let's get something to eat. And they're both walking towards the kitchen.
And Jennifer's like, I'm hungry. And Marianne's like, good news. I hid some cookies in the cupboard. And
Jennifer's like, found them.
Ice cream in the fridge.
Had it.
Pastrami in the pantry.
Ate it.
Oh, Jennifer has a big appetite.
Also,
they keep playing up that Jennifer eats a lot and she feels fat, but she's still like fat. Tiny.
And I appreciate the alliteration, pastrami in the pantry. But think about that. What, you keeping pastrami in the pantry? You're supposed to refrigerate the pastrami.
Also, there's two cookies in the cupboard. We start with alliteration.
Ice cream in the fridge doesn't really
Why couldn't they just do the middle one as an alliteration too for a nice rule of three?
They could have found another one, but they didn't try.
But so first and third are alliteration.
You don't keep pastrami in your pantry. It will go bad.
Pastrami in the... I don't know.
Yeah. You just had to come up with different things. They didn't. This is all they had.
Yeah, well, they came up with a bad one for the third. Why not just add a bad one for the second too? Ice cream in the icebox.
Ice cream in the icebox, but they don't call it icebox. It's not honeymooners.
Fudge in the fridge.
Fudge in the freezer.
Fudge in the freezer.
Fudge in the freezer. Ice cream in the fridge instead of fudge in the... Yeah, they were trying hard.
Cookies in the cupboard.
Anyways, the girls have left, and to get something else recognizable. Apparently, there's a little bit of lesson time music.
Lesson time music.
As we're about to get Larry become, self-aware and confess. And Larry...
As well, Balky,
they both sit on the sofa.
I reached for the brass ring, wound up with a bill for a broken plexiglass soundproof booth. And And they sit on the sofa, and Belky says, cousin, there's nothing wrong with wanting a college education for your child. Again, if we had more insight into why he's so desperate about that.
How much was this scholarship?
And Belky says, it's just the lying, cheating, deceitful way you went about it.
Larry's
but anyway, I
face is
got
like,
them to give you a parting gift.
Oh.
Just as if you were an honest contestant. And Larry perks up. Well, he's like, you got me a parting gift?
Oh.
And he goes, that's really nice. What'd you get me? And then conveniently, that vase is on the coffee table now in front of the sofa. He grabs it, holds it up, yells into it in announcer voice again. He goes, tell him, Johnny. And he goes into the announcer. He goes, the baby quiz home version. Now cousin Larry Appleton can play the baby quiz every night. Back to you, Lance. And then he pulls it away. He says, thank you, Johnny. And he puts it back. Oh, no, thank you, Lance. And then he laughs, in the announcer laugh. And then this is like really weird and uncharacteristic, but Larry grabs the vase from him. It's a clear glass vase, and smashes it over Balky's head.
Why?
And Balky goes, all right. And then roll credits. Like,
so
what? That's not anything they've done before.
It's a breakaway vase, but that was like very cartoony. He was mad that that was the parting gift.
And
he
Larry's
just smashes
like grumpy
the vase
at the end.
It's so wildly, totally inconsistent. And you do notice Bronson kind of pre-flinch before he gets hit because he knows it's coming. But the thing just breaks apart right away. And then let's get to the undercredit scene. This is my least favorite so far that I've seen.
So
it is mostly the extended part of the end of the.
It's a scene we saw.
Yeah,
in Act 1.
The end of the practicing the game show.
An extra line or two at the end.
Yes, about he doesn't know about the leg cramps. He doesn't in the Pop-Tarts line, right? They do the whole thing. And then the only extra thing is it goes back to Balky doing in his announcer voice. He picks up the vase again. He goes, we'll be right back after a message from our sponsor. Ladies, unsightly varicose veins got you down? Try new flesh-colored hidey hose. One size fits all. Back to you, Lance. And then
another alliteration.
Thank you, Johnny. No problem, Lance. And then at the end you hear him go, who am I? And he goes, all right. It's really weird.
It's so weird. What is that?
They showed, most of it was what they already showed with that one little bit of him doing the Heidi Hose bit and then roll credits. Listener, check out our TeePublic shop before we give you our thoughts and things. Visit danceofjoypod.com/shop. And even though this podcast may soon be sunsetting a little bit, you could always have your very own t-shirt or hoodie or coffee mug or tote bag with the logo to remind you. And then you can go back and listen to it from the beginning again.
Maybe you can do a podcast about your favorite podcast.
You could do a podcast, re-listen podcast about a rewatch podcast about a TV show. No, don't do that. The universe will implode on itself.
No, but it is a very cool logo. It will be very unique, designed by none other than Imran himself. It will be very unique. People will ask you about it in the grocery store, and then you can talk. You can share about Dance of Joy and about Perfect Strangers, earlier seasons, of course.
It's a great conversation starter.
It is, yeah.
Yes.
They're like, what's that on your shirt?
Yeah. Perfect Strangers, never heard of it. All right. Anything we need to know about this episode?
All right. So, yeah, basically, I didn't like it. I think the writing was very poor. Again, I think they got like emergency last minute writers who didn't care, or I don't know. It was all over the place.
The physical comedy is just okay.
We didn't get to the point fast, and like it could have been a lot tighter.
There's a lot of filler.
There's a lot of filler that it wasn't cohesive. The jokes weren't that funny. This one
really was like really cringy.
It felt
to
really
me.
lazy and cringy. Yeah, I didn't.
I get like especially Bronson doing the game show host. Yeah. I get it, but part of me was like, it's a little cringy.
Blooper with the bar down, bar up.
Oh my God.
What?
Continuity errors.
Everything was just.
But then again, we get a mud bath mention. We get him not falling for a Appleton snow job. Mud bath.
Yeah, those things didn't redeem it.
No, it doesn't
for
save
me.
it. Doesn't save it. Still uncharacteristic choices and things.
If nothing else, like anybody who knew the show, if they were still around, and you honestly. If they have like the same writers, or even us, let's pretend we were writers the whole time, and we're honestly at the end, we have no budget. I would just have them do another song and dance number. That's like so lovely when they sing and dance together.
That's true.
You know
can
what I
always
mean?
fall back on that.
That
You're
doesn't
like, how can we
cost
work that
money.
in?
They
No.
come up with that themselves. They're trained.
Yeah.
They're both Yale trained, and they sing and dance, and that's always fun.
I mean, they did a little bit of that on that when they were eating the crack root from Meepos and dancing,
but do it again.
Yeah.
Like there was nothing of like
even
this
in
whole
that,
episode.
in that one, was this season or last season where they're doing the United States puzzle in the test and they just start singing the state songs?
Yeah,
like that was great. They had almost saved that episode.
Almost, yeah. All right, so I feel like we've been giving our opinions throughout. I didn't like it. I don't know about you. The good parts were good, but didn't redeem it for me. Let's hear.
What do the listeners think?
Let's hear from our listeners. They might have some differing opinions than ours this week. First up, we have listener cousin Barb Weatherby. Barb Weatherby, who writes, I just rewatched this episode, and I must say it's my favorite of the season. Favorite. Having said that, it is season 8.
It's a low bar, and I guess I don't know.
Okay, that's great. For me, it wasn't even the favorite of the season, but Barbara Weatherby liked it. She writes, I did enjoy the overall feel of the episode. For me, it seems like the only one that doesn't feel like they're just racing toward the end, but just having fun.
I feel though, last episode I thought was a little more enjoyable with all the salad throwing in the air and the suit. Like
that one I actually laughed.
Might be my favorite so far.
I actually laughed at that one.
That
this
was
one
better
I was
than
like,
this
what
and
is
1
happening?
and 2 so far. Yes.
Yeah.
This one just got me confused and frustrated. Yes.
She writes, the physical comedy in the booth started to feel a lot like classic Larry and Balky, and it was really enjoyable for me. I may be in the minority, but I love Bronson doing the game show guy's voice, although the audience did seem to like it too. I suspect most of what he said was all out of Bronson's head, especially the Heidi Hose commercial in the post-credit scene. One fun thing I noticed is that when he said Larry's last name as the game show host, he still pronounced it Appleton.
Larry Appleton.
Also, a great wrap-up of the ongoing Look Out There, What's That manipulation of Balky by Larry. Perhaps it's meant to be a sign of Balky's growth. And I very much enjoyed it when he said to Larry, there's just nothing out there.
Nothing there.
Finally, he calls him.
Nothing out there.
She says, overall, a good, fun episode that reminded me of better days. Smiley face.
So some of those things I mentioned where they're actually doing some good stuff does have a good effect on, on some people if you watch it. Like they are getting back to their roots. But overall, the execution is still very poor.
Next up, we have listener cousin Pam Hitchcock, who opens with, this season is triggering my flight response, but I've come this far, so I have to soldier on.
Yes.
The real test comes next week.
I appreciate the commitment there.
When did Marianne become left-handed like Balky? Since their marriage, they really have been morphing into each other.
Yeah, could that happen?
No, she could have been left-handed. Maybe that's how they bonded in the first
if
place.
you're with someone so long that it will make you change the hands you write with.
No.
I wonder if that can happen.
I don't know.
Probably not.
You're a lefty.
I'm
Ask
a lefty.
your wife.
I don't think so.
Cousin Pam writes, a college scholarship to the college of your choice 18 years into the future. What? Exactly. We don't know what the stakes are. They could have made it more. It could, like, if they did show him stressing about the entire cost of raising a child and then college, then the prize could have been like a savings bond, or I don't know, like.
And little do they know, whatever they won in 18 years, that's just going to be like a fraction of what you're going to have to pay anyways.
Right.
Sorry. Unless it's amortized over the course of the 18 years.
Now,
Prorated.
I mean, like, if we can talk about this in PS today, but if we did this again, it would be like, like daycare and preschool for babies is so expensive.
Yes, that's what you would be paying
It'd be
for.
like free,
1 year,
free daycare.
That's like $25,000 right there,
Yeah.
right? For a year. So that would be definitely
Because
kindergarten.
that way we could talk about Jennifer wanting to go back to work and stuff like that.
You get 1 year of free kindergarten worth, which is a lot of money now, surprisingly.
Yeah.
Used to be free. I don't know what happened.
And it could have been this like empowering episode about her wanting to work and not be a stay-at-home mom or whatever.
That's PS today.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get
They're
there.
not doing that in
Pin
the
that.
90s.
We'll finish that in a minute. Okay, back to cousin Pam Hitchcock. She writes, Balky was, I love how Balky's standing up to Larry after years of being manipulated. Balky was throwing a fit and being unreasonable in that booth, so I think Larry's reaction was justified. I know Larry was thrown out for cheating, but I think Balky should have been thrown out too for misconduct and destruction of property. Technically, Larry hadn't even cheated, and why was Larry the one who had to pay? The only one who had to pay.
He was going to cheat, though.
Yeah.
I mean, he did. He called them. He asked for the questions.
Yeah.
He used his position as a reporter.
Sure.
And then immorally. I don't know.
But we don't even know what his cheating plan was because was he going to tell Jennifer what to answer?
But how is he going to look?
They practiced it in the morning. He hinted at it.
How is he supposed to look at his shoe for the answer while the game is going on?
Exactly.
When was he going to look at the answer?
Yeah, that's true.
How
it was on the bottom
of your shoe going to help you with anything?
Also,
first of all, it'll get rubbed off, and second of all, you can't casually, nonchalantly look at the bottom of your shoe and read something, and nobody knows.
Maybe he had like a mirror reflective thing set up. Also, if we had seen that actual buildup of him getting the answers, if we had seen it rather than been told about it, then we could have also seen that practice session where he's trying to hide from Jennifer that he stole the answers, but like get her to practice those answers.
Yeah.
That would have been there would have been room for some humor too. Like, we're doing this, but trust me, these are
And then you're invested because we know he's cheating.
But she doesn't know.
She doesn't know. And he knows we know going in that he's going to cheat. So you're like, he's cheating.
Yeah.
How's he going to pull this off?
That would have been so much better. Oh my God. We should rewrite this episode. Back to Cousin Pam, who writes, a lesson time? Wow. It's been a while.
You're right. Yes. You read that wrong. Wow.
Yeah. It's been a while. The flesh-colored Heidi hose for varicose veins over the credits made me laugh more than anything else in the episode.
Heidi hose.
In this episode, Jen is 8 months pregnant and Marianne is 6.5 months pregnant if she got pregnant on her wedding night. Keep that in mind because next week we're doing math.
I was told there'd be no math on this podcast.
We made it. We have 2 more episodes to have no math.
Oh, my God. All right. Finally shows up.
She writes, I really didn't like the cousins being pitted against each other and it felt like we were back to having a show built around physical comedy. Yeah. That being said, it wasn't a particularly bad episode. All of them got out of that house. We had some good physical comedy. It had a plot, although rather far-fetched. I'll put it in the Bibi Bobka category at 6.75.
Another positive review.
Cousin Pam.
2 for 2. That's 2 for 2 positives.
I respectfully disagree, which is fine. This is why we have your comments. That's very generous, in my opinion. I did not like it.
Some people like this episode.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Next up, we have listener cousin Whitney Smith, who writes, I didn't really get or understand this episode. Thank you. Me too. Balky and Marianne have requested to be on this show over 800 times and never got accepted. And on their 801st time, they decide to request Larry and Jennifer, and he did it, of course, without their permission. Of course, the internet wasn't really around back then, but wouldn't Balky get in trouble for forging Larry's signature? Because I'm sure he had to sign
I had that thought, too. Like, he signed his name on there.
We didn't even see them play the game, although some things never change. After all these years, Larry still tries to get away with stuff, and it backfires on him. But what does change is Balky finally realizing that he's being manipulated. Can't say I really liked this episode, just didn't get it or make sense. Agreed. That's the camp I'm in. Next up, listener cousin Nicole Stoner also finds it amusing that announcer Balky pronounces Appleton as Appleton, as Lance. Okay, then we have listener cousin Jason Krinko, who writes, this was definitely a weird one. I did enjoy the game show element, including Bronson's game show voice, but I was sad we didn't get more actual gameplay.
That's what I'm saying.
Indeed. Instead, we spent way too much time inside the soundproof booth, which didn't make sense to me. There
make sense.
There were times when we could hear Balky and Larry and the girls and Lance at the same time. The audience should only be able to hear one location at a time. Am I right? Plus, the game show studio seemed to be the same set as the giant oversized nursery from the episode with Larry and Balky Jr.
Yep.
It amused me to see that, but it's almost like the crew just doesn't care anymore. Yep. We all seem to be in consensus about one thing. Balky's moment of clarity about Larry gazing into the future felt really good. Finally, Balky's becoming immune to the manipulation. Seems like a fitting development for the character and thus a pretty good reason for the show to end. We'll always have Mud Day. Gonna get started on my hat.
Yeah, send us a picture of that Mud Day hat.
Send a picture of your Mud Day hat.
I'm not sure what it looks like. I want to see what it looks like.
And then Jason Karinko again, who writes, I forgot to mention something we've already mentioned this, but he says, I forgot to mention something for PS today. When Lance was taking a photo of Balky and Marianne in the studio, Balky said he had to advance the film in the camera. LOL, boy, that took me back.
You gotta advance it. No, just turn that wheel. Just turn the wheel.
Just turn the wheel.
You gotta advance it. Don't be ridiculous. We didn't get one.
Of course I have. Don't be ridiculous.
And we do have Dimitri, but in a photo on the fire.
I don't think we're seeing Dimitri anymore in real.
They definitely don't have budget for.
Yeah, they had to return the Dimitri. They probably sold it to pay for some of these things.
Probably auctioned it or something, and they got rid of the Dimitri.
Dimitri should be in the Smithsonian.
They didn't pay anyone.
Next to Archie Bunker's chair and Fonzie's jacket.
Indeed,
you should put Dimitri there.
Yeah, or at least some like TV museum.
Yeah.
Okay, here we are. Let's return to PS Today, which is, of course, the segment of this podcast in which we discuss if we can or should remake this episode today, what things would change, what things would need updating, or is it even worth it? Well, I would redo the whole thing to like make sense and have a point.
Yeah, absolutely. You start there.
Don't make it the same.
Start with the point.
But again, the big glaring one of this episode is that camera. That camera has to be updated.
Oh,
right?
yeah. The camera is now a phone. The game show, you can still put them on some game show. Just make it wackier
and make it about, indeed, how expensive it is to have a child.
And it's even more expensive now.
College
so they would be stressing out more about college, about kindergarten, about preschool.
I would make it a more specific, like a full ride to like Stanford or something, or like, or what if Larry got like a letter in a mail from his alma mater about some contest? I mean, about like a free legacy admission, something, and then he has some connection to it because he wants his son to go to the same college as him and stuff like that.
You could do that, or newspaper print is a dying industry. They're laying off people at the Chronicle. He's freaking about
too early.
About
it was still good in '93.
No,
they didn't
we're
know.
doing it now.
Oh, now. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Because we're at PS Today.
Newspaper's done. Yeah, there's
newspaper's done. He's got to need a new job. He's laid off. He's stressed out about bills, so that sets up the stakes.
Yeah.
The fact that he doesn't know anything about Jennifer, I guess you could still do that. It's kind of
the
weird.
Game show could be the same kind of game show, but we'd want to see more gameplay.
And make it more like an empowered pregnant woman.
Correct.
Storyline. Also, you'd have to redo this whole thing.
The whole thing, but like
redo the whole
make
thing.
us believe it,
Yeah.
Anyway, that's just some thoughts. We don't have a definitive answer on.
The whole thing about they're worried about their kids' future is still
relatable.
That's still relatable.
A thing.
Yeah. But it's more immediate and not like college. I don't know.
I think it would be about. Okay, this is what it would be about. It would be about stressing about the finances. Maybe he is getting laid off, whatever. And then Jennifer's like, oh, they just offered me a promotion after maternity leave. I'm going to be head of regional, whatever. And and then Larry's like, what? You didn't tell me you wanted to go back to work, even though we've been pregnant for 9 months. We don't talk about these things. And she's like, I want to go back to work, but daycare is so expensive and I'm losing my job.
What if you become Mr. Mom?
Then here comes,
or
that, and then he doesn't want to do that. And then here comes the announcement about a game show where you get 3 years of free daycare or whatever.
But how do you get
some local promotion or something?
Still on both couples to participate. So you'd have to work that in.
Well, Balky and Marianne just want to be on the show because they're goofy, and they're
instead of them signing. I don't know. Maybe don't do this whole. Yeah,
we're on to something though.
Yeah,
there's definitely something better.
I think the things we just came up with during the episode would have made a better episode, and structurally wise, right? You just got to make it the perfect stranger structure that we used to.
That whole storyline about lying and getting the answers, that's a story.
Yeah.
And they just told us that in one line of what do you call it?
Exposition.
Exposition. Yeah, they just
and
told
the same
it
thing
to
with
us.
like the end of the game show, instead of showing us that
show it
what
to
happens,
us. Yeah, they just tell us. And there's so much told to us and so many things.
Shortcuts.
We're to believe so many different things happen. Just pick one and show it. Like.
And then the glass base to the head makes no sense. What is going on here? You're just breaking things over. Okay, whatever.
We're done.
Next week, listener, we are finally
winding down
the 2-part series finale, part 1 of 2. These originally were both aired the same night. We discussed this. I don't know if we decided 100%. Maybe we do both of those in one episode, or do we still want to do 2 episodes?
Let's let our listeners chime in.
We'll see. You'll find out in the next episode.
Let us know If you'd like to have 2 separate episodes or one episode.
It's funny because part of me wants to just wrap this up and get it over with, but the other part of me kind of wants to.
But we committed to a certain number.
Savor it, and
we've never combined, so maybe we won't.
And I almost don't want it to end.
Yeah.
But part of me wants it to just be over. But part of me doesn't want it to end. Also, I'll be sad.
Let's do 2 episodes, or let's ask people. You can tell us, but we did commit to one episode
stick
per.
To our same format.
Yeah.
But, oh man, I'm so torn.
We haven't done 2-parters together before.
But this is what this season has done to me. It's got me going. Can we just wrap this up? But I'm also gonna feel a little bit of like sadness in the completion of this, that we did this whole thing. I mean, this is the month.
Wait, don't get sad yet. We still have 2 more episodes.
Yeah, it's this month it'll be the 4-year anniversary
of when we started.
We started
in October.
October on your birthday, October 16th, 2020 was when I released the first episode.
The first air date on my birthday.
Yeah. So we recorded it about now 4 years ago in the pandemic.
I did not even remember it was released on my birthday.
That's what the date says on the thing. So
wouldn't it have been nice if we finished on the same? We still have time, actually.
Yeah, we'll be close. It's like
we can record 2 more tomorrow and put them out.
Quick 4 years go by. Anyways, in the meantime, another way to support the show is by visiting our website and clicking that Buy Us a Coffee button. It's a virtual tip jar. We appreciate all the coffees you send over.
Please.
It helps
some more to finish this.
Yes, we're almost done. It helps the show stay on the internet and stuff, and we appreciate everyone's contributions. This was a passion project.
It was a passion project. I'm impressed with us.
I can't believe we're almost to the end.
I'm very impressed with us. We did a good job. We started something and we're about to finish it.
Rarely do I finish things. I'll start a lot of things.
Oh, yeah. I won't even start things. I'll have ideas for things and never
I'll start things and they'll just either keep going forever or they just won't finish it.
I wonder if this show has somehow kept us grounded, and when we finish, everything's going to fall apart. We're going to descend into drugs routine. And madness and crime. This show has kept us out of trouble.
If we descend into madness, we'll definitely podcast about that.
Yeah, for sure.
That'll be a good show.
For sure. All right. In the meantime, as we do, before we descend into madness, to finish out this show, there is another way you can support us, and that's just by coming out, saying hi, visiting us on all the in the ether. The first place you go is danceofjoypod.com. That's our website, and from there you can click around and get to all the places where you can stream this podcast, and it would do us a great big favor if you just hit like and subscribe and maybe leave us a rating or a review. Tell us how you feel. You can also leave us a voice message right there from the main website page. There's a little microphone. You press that. Talk to us. Tell us what your emotions are as we're winding this down. Tell us if any part of this episode was redeeming for you. Did you understand any of it? You can do this all in writing as well and send us an email at danceofjoypod@gmail.com. And you're always welcome to come and say hi on any of our social media accounts. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. But Imran, what is the most important thing our listeners should do?
Always check with your continuity editor whether the bar was up or down the last time you had the shot and where it needs to go.
Pay attention.
Oh my God, how does that happen? No.
Get rid of your Starbucks cups. No Starbucks cups allowed on set. Why was it even on the set?
Make sure Starbucks cups are cleared of set. You want to make sure people aren't wearing modern day watches if you are shooting a period piece. Stuff like that. Just a little attention to the detail.
Don't do it.
The most important thing, of course, is to share this show with the pregnant game show fan in your life.
Yes.
They're pregnant or they love game shows.
Or they're stressing about
college scholarships.
Their children will be.
If they like soundproof booths, you definitely want to share this episode.
Share the show with a friend. Word of mouth takes us a long, long way, and we appreciate it. Every word of every mouth is very appreciated. That's our show for now. Thank you so much for listening and being with us to the end. Now we are so happy.
Now we are so happy. We do the dance of joy. Hey, 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 hey.